Meeting has arrived. I'd like to call this special meeting of the Sandy Springs City Council to order for Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Rusty Paul.
Present.
Councilmember Don Paulson.
Here.
Councilmember Melody Kelly. Absent. Councilmember Melissa York. Here. Councilmember Jody Rochelle. Here. Councilmember Katie DeJulia.
Here.
Councilmember Andy Bauman.
I'm here. Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. DeJulia.
I move approval of the agenda for a special board meeting Tuesday, May 21st, 2024.
We have a motion by Mr. DeJulia. Is there a second? Second. Moved by Mr. DeJulia, second by Mr. Paulson. Will we approve the meeting agenda? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Questions on approval of the meeting agenda. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The meeting agenda is approved. Moving to the next item, the proposed 2025 budget presentation by the city manager.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. We are excited to reach this point in our annual budget process. Today marks the presentation of our line item detail for the FY25 city manager's proposed budget. Now we are working. Just a recap of our budget calendar. You all have seen this slide twice before. We are now about halfway through. Today, as I mentioned, marks the presentation of our line item detail for all of the funds. We will have our first public hearing on the budget on the next scheduled council meeting date, June 4th at 6 p.m. And then we will have the second public hearing and scheduled for budget adoption on June 18th at 6 p.m. As in the past, we always adhere to very conservative budget principles. We conservatively determine our revenue and expenses because we want to avoid any undue surprises and unpleasant surprises during the budget year. We also do not use one-time revenue sources for ongoing expenses. As a recap, council's adopted priorities are shown on the slide above. At the center of everything that we do is customer service and citizen engagement, followed by public safety, transportation accessibility and community appearance, economic development with a focus on redevelopment, recreation and cultural enrichment, sustainable growth and environmental stewardship, and water reliability. All of the items that are included in the proposed budget today tie back to council's adopted priorities and helping staff do the work that is necessary to accomplish these priorities. The next slide is a recap of our operating budget assumptions, which was first shown during workshop 1. We have $12,626,000 for debt and principal for the public facilities authority, both for this facility and for the public police headquarters and municipal court complex. We have refined the number for the General Government Services Call Center agreement. That is on your regular agenda for this afternoon for council to approve. We also have included an increase for the North Fulton Regional Radio Authority operation that's related to ongoing capital needs for the radio authority. We also have a slight change from our prior year allocation for nonprofit services that I'll talk through when we get to that section. It is the same information, however, that you saw in workshop 1. We have refined our general liability insurance number. That is 1.957. We have also included a 5% cost of living adjustment for all city employees. Health insurance estimate for city employees as part of our benefits that are offered to our employees. Animal control agreement is a continuation that council approved back in December for the current services provided by Fulton County. We also have debt service for our fire apparatus and equipment. Jail services is increasing by a small amount. Our public works contractor agreements are also included, and we have a detail of those further in that I'll get to in just a few minutes. The same with our parks and rec contractor agreements. And then finally, continued subsidy to buy down the response time for EMS response throughout the city. We are now looking at a partnership with the other North Fulton cities, and you'll be hearing more about that at an upcoming council meeting with a new agreement with AMR. Any questions on our operating budget assumptions? Next, we'll go into capital budget assumptions. This is the same information that you saw in workshop 1. We are proposing a new truck for community development. We're replacing 2 vehicles, administrative vehicles for the fire department, and 1 new vehicle for the community paramedicine program. We have the upfit, the equipment needed for the medical response unit the council approved a few months ago. I'm sorry, sir. Yes, you do. You should have a stack of them.
Yeah, that's for the tip. What they do? They never go.
Yes.
I don't know. This year.
I'm sorry about that, Councilman. We're on slide 6.
You got an extra here.
Dr. Kelly is not here.
I know exactly. Yes. Okay. Thank you, sorry.
Sure, no, I'm sorry about that. So slide 6, is everybody back to where we need to be? Okay. We also have police fleet replacement. This will purchase 16 vehicles to replace aging vehicles within the police fleet. We have funding included for public works for 2 new trucks, replacing them with high mileage. And then finally, a replacement truck for park staff. Next, slide 7, capital budget assumptions. This is the same item, same list that you've seen in workshop 1 and 2, with the exception that we have now added the ballot items that council approved. Outdoor art is continuing at $60,000. We'll talk about your question when we get to the question and answer portion at the end. Community development has the perimeter small area plan that was approved as part of the ballot this year. Abernathy Arts Center, cistern improvements, City Springs district improvements for demolition and infrastructure needs, facility maintenance, Fire Station 1 addition, assessment and design, Fire Station 4, and a companion 3-story office building to house Chatcom Fire Headquarters and Police. Facilities, a police shooting range and sim house scoping study. As we discussed in our last workshop, we are recommending on feedback from council that we split the cost of the scoping study, $50,000 with the Sandy Springs Police Foundation and $50,000 with the general fund. Fire equipment replacement, new turnout gear, replacement turnout gear and personal protective equipment for firefighters. Infrastructure hardware replacement, workstation replacement and upgrades, a portable LED wall for the Performing Arts Center, police ammunition, bridge and dam maintenance, city beautification, another ballot item, the internally illuminated street name sign replacements and rehab, intersection and operational improvements, and pavement management. As a reminder, we did reduce pavement management by $750,000, and that is having a companion amount coming from the local maintenance improvement grant from GDOT of $1 million to keep us at the $7 million per year investment to maintain our 80 score on our PCI, which you'll hear about this evening. Next is the Roswell Road Safety Project, which was also a ballot item. We have a new item, the final inspection of the Transform 285-400 project before we accept those items from GDOT into our system. Sidewalk improvements, stormwater capital improvements at $4.25 million, including an expansion of our inventory and an update of our inventory system as we discussed in our last workshop. TMC fiber program, TMC video wall replacement, traffic calming, traffic management program, transportation master plan update, trail segment 2C, Abernathy South Greenway, Hammond Park improvements, Morgan Falls Athletic Center administrative building demolition, Morgan Falls Athletic Complex improvements, Morgan Falls Athletic Complex lighting. And another ballot item, Morgan Falls Dog Park improvements. The final amount we plan to have necessary for Old Riverside Park. And then the last ballot item this year of Ridgeview Park improvements. Any questions on our capital assumptions? Yeah. Next, we get to the tree fund. This is on slide 9. This is the capital portion of the tree fund. We do have a detail of the tree fund that we'll talk through a little bit further. But to give you some insight into what is proposed out of the capital, we have tree fund surveys, we have maintenance of public trees, we have capital projects, we have our partnership with Trees Atlanta, invasive removal, pilot projects, and education programs for a total of $590. Next is a summary of our general fund revenues. So if you would like to, for the ease of reference, if you want to take your line item detail and turn it sideways, I will refer back and forth between the slides and the line item detail that you have printed in your notebook. You'll see the top line are the property taxes that we are projecting to receive, or excuse me, proposing for our FY25. That amount is less than what we are projecting for FY24, but we believe that that is a good conservative number to use going forward based upon the report that we recently had from Haddow and Company, as well as changes within the real estate market. Local option sales tax, we are projecting at $30 million for FY25. And Councilman Bauman, to your question, we'll get further into that later in the slides to talk through countywide collections of local option sales tax. Yes, this is less than what we are projecting to receive in FY24, but we believe that this is a good conservative number to be using as we build our budget for 25. Business and occupational tax is staying the same at $10 million. Franchise taxes are seeing a slight increase at 9.175. Insurance premium tax is also seeing a slight increase to $9 million. And then other revenue is seeing a significant increase over the prior year, largely due to the amount that we are receiving in interest income from our investments. Just to remind everybody that other revenue category includes motor vehicle, intangible, real estate transfer, alcoholic beverage, excise mixed drink, excise tax on rental motor vehicles, all licenses and permits, charges for services, permit fees, re-inspections, rec and park fees, municipal court, interest, and transfer in from hotel motel. And if you'd like to follow along with the line item detail in the budget book, it's on pages 2 and 3. Next, we get to a summary of our general fund expenditures. From this table, we've included the page number so that you can refer to it in the line item detail. The city council department is seeing a slight uptick, and that is largely due to additional amounts for dues and fees, as well as the cost of travel for attending trainings that council is going to, as well as other staff. I'm going to jump ahead just slightly because we're going to catch up with all of these, but to remind all, during budget workshop 1, staff presented their requested enhancements. The Sandy Springs Police Department is on page 18 in the budget book, and the enhancements that were requested here were for new social media tracking software, an increase to the Motorola radios, the annual lease. There's an increase in the Axon contract, which Axon, many of us refer to it as Taser. That is our body-worn cameras, Taser, and mouth fuses as part of Axon. There's also an increase in vehicle repair and maintenance cost, and there's an increase in staffing. with the addition of 2 patrol officer ones, 1 sergeant, 1 GCIC specialist, and transitioning a property and evidence clerk from part-time to full-time. Their capital request this year was to increase, to maintain police ammunition. Next slide, 14, is fire department and emergency management. These coincide with pages 20 through 22 in the budget book. The requested enhancements in the fire department included software programs for radio connectivity, virtual community risk reduction, site improvements for fire stations 1 and 3, a re-up of our glance preemption software. Previously, we bought that 5 years ago, and it's now time for the next 5-year agreement for that. For everyone's reminder, this is the software that is in all of our fire apparatus. As they approach an intersection, they can preempt the signal timing and be able to move through safely and get to a call as quickly as possible. Educational items, also an increase in the EMS subsidy, and then 2 additional positions, a community paramedic officer and a systems data administrator. For their capital this year, they have new fire equipment replacement and turnout gear. Next is information technology, which is on page 9 of your budget book. Their enhancements this year are for additional cybersecurity measures to put in place as they work to protect our network. We also have a small amount included for AI initiatives as our staff begins working to investigate how we should be best positioning ourselves to utilize AI ethically and to improve the service delivery to our residents. We also have enhanced text notification system this year and increased staffing for a new senior web developer and a new security administrator. For their capital request, they had new infrastructure hardware replacement, which are the network switches and servers that are necessary to keep our network running optimally and protected, and then workstation replacement upgrades. Within the city manager's office, we have an increase in staffing to add the director of data strategy and analytics, and also annualizing the grants administrator position back within the city manager's office. Facilities is budget book page 12 and includes a new citywide facility condition assessment. I know that y'all are aware, we usually do that every 5 years, and it is time to do a new facility condition assessment. That serves as the basis for all of the items that we look at each year to see what needs to be fixed or improved, and forms the basis of our capital improvement 5-year investments into our facilities. We also have to complete a citywide facility ADA compliance assessment. We have audio-visual repairs and site improvements, which includes some changes to City Bar outdoor area to make it more user-friendly, green room renovations, the installation of the art at Veterans Park, terrace pavers at the William Payne House, and some funding for some additional renovations at the William Payne House. There is also increased staffing in the form of a building maintenance technician and a mail clerk / security personnel for police headquarters and municipal court, and then a new building maintenance tech that will be dedicated to supporting recreation and parks and their facilities. Within the capital request for facilities, we spoke earlier about the City Springs district improvements. We also have ongoing funds for improvements to the cistern here under City Green. We have facilities maintenance needs, the scoping study for the police shooting range, Fire Station 1 addition assessment and design, Fire Station 4 and the 3-story office building, and then finally Abernathy Arts Center for the facility, temporary facility, and the ongoing master plan for the use of the site.
Yes, what's the budget for, what is the city contribution to the art at the Veterans Park?
That is $40,000 for the installation.
That's something we've already, we need more.
No, this is to install that art.
So, but we don't have that money set
We don't.
aside.
No, sir.
Do we have any money?
We do have some foundation donations that have been received, but this would be outside of that.
We don't have any previously budgeted or and set aside money for that project.
Not for the installation. No,
What about for the payment of the purchase?
For the artwork, no, we did not. Remember, those funds were all to come.
I'm just trying to
You're just
confirm.
confirming. Yes, sir. That's correct.
I'm asking about the cost associated with the Veterans Park art piece. The sculpture. So the city will contribute. The request is that the city contribute
The installation.
$40,000 for installation.
Because of how technical these are, in particular the flame with the electrical that has to go into it and the engineering of the base for it. That is what we are estimating. I don't think it will go beyond that, but we wanted to have a little cushion.
Okay, so, and the foundation has all of the money been raised yet for,
We have
a major contributor.
We have a commitment, but we haven't received all of the funds yet.
More than half, I think, have been received.
That's correct.
The balance.
But are there pledges for the entire amount?
Communications, which is on page 14 of your line item detail, includes the rebid of call center services, which again is on your regular meeting agenda for this evening. The addition of a social media specialist who will be dedicated to the city's social media engagement and platform. And then again, the continuation of the outdoor art program.
I sure hope we spread that on.
That is part of what we're going to talk about. Public Works, which is page 23 in your line item detail, includes an increase in technical services. Most of this as well is being driven by the renewal of Glance, which is the companion part of the budget that goes into the fire trucks. We also have to have the companion receivers on the traffic signals. We have an increase in the cost of electricity for streetlights, as well as there are more streetlights in the city now. 2 additional positions, a traffic signal engineer and a utility operations coordinator. Many of the capital requests that you see to come from the general fund are continuation of prior year programs that we are continuing our implementation of. Traffic calming, the transportation master plan update is an update in preparation for a potential T-SPLOST 3, which will be coming around in 2027. The final inspection of Transform 285-400, expansion of our fiber program throughout the city. We currently have 43 miles of fiber, and that builds off of our fiber master plan that was approved by council a few years ago. Expansion of the traffic management program, again, stormwater capital improvements, continuing our guardrail replacement, our beautification projects with landscaping, TMC video wall replacement. Surprisingly, the video wall downstairs is the original TMC video wall. So it's reaching its end of life. So we're going to recommend replacement this year. Bridge and dam maintenance, our sidewalk program, intersection and operational improvements, and our pavement management program. The next page includes a breakdown for the Public Works contractor analysis. Our current vendors are all listed on the screen. There have been slight changes to their proposed amount for 25, either based off of an escalator or negotiations.
I don't know.
Did we just bid that, Marty?
Yes.
So it's a new cost.
You know, reason why, you know,
I believe in this case, this is still a budget figure. We just opened bids. It was within like the last 2 weeks. So we're in the process of bid evaluation right now. So we don't have final award recommendation. So that's an estimate based on the potential escalation.
especially with 285 and 400 opening back up. Now, we've been constrained for the past few years and how much we could actually more maintain.
Councilman, that's the largest part of that increase is the 2024 number. There are very limited amounts of interstate right of way we were allowed to access because of the contracts going on out there. As they're finishing, those are going to open back up for us to get back out there and mow and maintain.
Before you did. I think that was hard.
It
What's
is.
utilities pay back?
No. They passed that along to us.
Okay, last year, that's fantastic.
That was because it was new and we just started with the program.
So, yeah, this is a state mandated program. In this case, this is the services, the locate services we provide, where we have traffic signal infrastructure or lighting infrastructure. When the dig permit is called in, we need to get a utility locate provider out there to mark our utilities for the benefit of anybody else that's working on the road.
That's for city contracts.
That's for anybody that requests a locate near where our utilities might be buried, et cetera. So we pay a contractor to go out there and mark where our facilities are. If somebody else is doing work in the say AT&T is coming through with a project, whatever the case might be, we mark where our utilities are so that they don't strike.
Next is Recreation and Parks, which is page 26 in your line item detail. This includes a new software program for scheduling part-time employees, additional program supplies for expanded recreation programs, and then a few small tools, including a swivel dump truck, a stump grinder, and a scissor lift for small projects that the park staff can undertake. Within the capital line, they do have, and we have included design funds for trail segment 2C. We're currently constructing trail segment 2A, which is the south side of Orphan Lake. 2C is the portion that goes from Grogan's Ferry on the north side and connects down to 2A. We've gotten some feedback that that segment is likely to be favorably reviewed by DNR as part of their grant program, which we did receive a grant for trail segment 2E. So we would like to move to 2C in order to access those funds. 2E has been pushed out a few years. That's exactly right. Yes, sir. Because of the lack of funding. And we wanted to try to get these grant funds while there is the availability to do that. Next is Abernathy South Greenway, Morgan Falls Athletic Complex, Old Riverside Park, Hammond Park improvements, Morgan Falls Athletic Complex lighting, and then Morgan Falls Administrative Building demolition. Yes, ma'am.
Plans to, time clock stuff, you said, for a 3-hour reservation system that residents use to book the different spaces for different programs.
You mean Civic Rec?
Yeah. So it's kind of funky, I would say.
That is our plan. We haven't identified a better solution, but we can certainly look into that. Okay. Next is a breakdown of our recreation parks contractor analysis. That includes pro cutters and Rupert, green infrastructure maintenance, on-call design contractors, and then a few other contracts, which include individuals and companies providing programming, Fulton County Schools for use of their facilities for our programs, and then background checks of folks that work.
What's the triple?
So.
It's also about green infrastructure.
Kristen, can you speak to that one?
Yeah, so this is something that's new to us. We have several green infrastructure amenities in our parks, whether it be the parking lot or the actual green infrastructure that we maintain. So this contract is designed to allow us to properly maintain that. We've been sort of piecemealing this with our existing contractors, and they don't have the expertise that we feel like we need for the plantings, for the maintenance, because it requires a higher level of expertise to do that. So this is a new contract.
Can you come back to us at some point in work session at an appropriate time? Just, I think the whole topic of green infrastructure, and updating us on where we are and where we're headed, plus these maintenance costs, and, you know, because when we are asked to make the decisions as it relates to trails, we've had questions come up about concrete versus permeable. It would be nice to know a little bit more about these kinds of ongoing commitments, not suggesting we don't agree to them, but having that full context, it would be useful for us, and I'm sure the public to know about what we're doing with the infrastructure.
You know, also on the one with the Fulton County Schools, I thought we were in a problem with Fulton County Schools that we weren't going to be able to use their facilities anymore.
We haven't been able to get as much time in there as we have had in the past, but we do have some ongoing usage. So we're trying to work through that and try to increase our access so that we don't have to cut back on our program offerings. Yeah. I wouldn't say they're backing out of it. It's ongoing conversations that we have to have with them. All right. Next is community development, which is page 28 in your budget book. Their only enhancement request this year was for some small tools and equipment. Next is Performing Arts Center, which, yes, you have to flip all the way to page 54 for that one in your line item detail. But the enhancements included here are requests to increase artist fees. And you'll notice on page 55 that we have broken down, it's actually, yes, it's page 55. Artist fees are now broken down by rentals as well as city-produced events instead of the blended total that we were reporting previously. We also have in-house uniforms. We're adding a new signature event, which is Oktoberfest, which will be scheduled for October. And then we're also seeing an increase in the cost of food and beverage that is being prepared and sold to our clients. We've talked about the portable LED wall. It will also be rentable by clients who come in and may wish to have it as part of their event that we are hosting for them here. Next slide, slide 23 is a breakdown of personnel count. The change that you will see on this today from what we showed you a week ago, excuse me, is at the bottom with the Community Violence Reduction Grant Fund positions. They were approved and added by Council 24, and we did not have them reported on the schedule. They are reflected here. And we've also shown the transition within the tree fund to have a half position as we split our urban forest coordinator between the tree fund and the general fund now. Next is our nonprofit summary. There have been no changes to this since our discussion earlier. This is still showing an increase to Abernathy Arts Center based on the cost of living, or excuse me, the escalator that was included in the operating agreement. Community Assistance Center is proposed to increase to $200,000 based off of the request that you all heard from their executive director a few weeks ago. Keep Sandy Springs Beautiful household hazardous waste is eliminated this year because it is an every other year event and it is being held, I believe, in about a month. It's going to be held for this year.
It's this weekend.
Oh, it's this weekend. Okay. All right. Keep Sandy Springs Beautiful for recycling is staying the same and their capital amount at $50,000. The recreation grant program is continuing at $150,000. However, we will be taking a very close look at the utilization of those funds and we'll be putting together additional guidelines for applicants going forward. Sandy Springs Youth Sports requested a slight increase in order to accommodate the participants that they are seeing who would be in need of additional scholarships. So we've adjusted that number to account for that. And then Solidarity Sandy Springs is continuing at the same amount. Yes, ma'am.
Have we ever talked about on the City Springs Theater Company?
not as part of the general fund. They have been part of the Performing Arts Center. We've had a pass through from the Sandy Springs Arts Foundation to support their education program. That's in the Performing Arts Center fund, but not the grant. That was a grant from the Sandy Springs Art Foundation. So it depends on if those funds would be available.
You may recall that the foundation received resources for the naming of certain facilities, and those funds were supposed to be used on this campus for things like the City Springs Theater and other forms of development. So that's where that money was supposed to be.
How much was given for its dedicated to them this year?
I do not hope to get that money.
Would we consider adding that to this?
They could
I think they
apply.
do so much for our city.
They could apply for the recreation grant program.
That's the only place it would fit in.
Based upon how we have previously structured our nonprofit programs, that would be my recommendation. But if council wishes to do something different, we can certainly have that conversation.
If they applied for a recreation grant, wouldn't that interfere with the negotiations we do on the, what we facility?
That's a set rate. That has already been established. We have partner rate, and if that's not, I wouldn't think that would be a conflict, no, sir. Yes, sir.
That, given that, couple of discussions we had at Austin, the council about discussion about being able to grant money. At the end of the day, the city does not, cannot, under the Georgia Constitution, offer grants. The grants that you refer to are contractual arrangements that you have made for different nonprofit entities to provide services that the city does not otherwise provide. There is a quid pro quo when you put the one that has to be quid pro quo. And using the Sea Springs Theater Group as an example, that money that is paid to them comes from the foundation as a pay, because it's paid to the city. So as it stands right now, the city is not grant. That's one reason that foundation was formed. Actually, has changed. And so at the end of the day, there will have to be some mechanisms like that. Any money that flows through the city that is not appropriate for the city to pay or give money. Yeah.
No, but one of the things, I suppose one of the things we can do through, for example, the nonprofit recreation program is we can provide as a contractual basis money to do things that we want done. For example, the educational programming, we can be a partner like we have been. I think there was some discussion, for example, of them adding a show for people with special needs, an extra show to their calendar that I will hopefully they can get grant money for that. So I think message loud and clear that it has to be tied to a purpose, a specific thing. I think also we will continue to assess what the appropriate rates are for partner organizations that we think provide extraordinary benefits to the city by them deciding to house themselves here in our facilities. And I think that's always up for discussion as well, as been in the past in the city. So the intent of Councilwoman Rochelle's point, there are ways to engage these partner organizations to get the ends that we achieve. And then to Mary's point, we've done a lot and there's some naming rights that have been involved. So it's a very complicated discussion. I do agree that you know, at a certain level, so much of this budget is sort of really beyond the wherewithal of the council. So our influence is at some of the edges of the budget, and this is one of those categories, whether it's arts, parks, recreation, where I think we want to exert our influence and say as it respects to the feedback we're getting from our constituents. So it's good comment and discussion is good to continue through the course of the year. I actually had told them that they should apply. I mean, if they want a scholarship, folks, but we didn't do a great job this last year of letting people know.
As I said, we're changing.
Right, if they want a scholarship, people either in for, education or for potentially tickets or whatever it is, that's a good place for them to come through.
I know, what the conversation, I don't know what's going on, the meeting, so she finds them. Okay. Okay. Next is a breakdown and summary of the contingencies that are included within certain departments within the general fund. These, as you all are aware, these are very similar amounts to what we have had in years past, and these are for the unforeseens that come up during the year, and we come back to council for additional discussion if necessary. Finally, on this slide, slide 26 is a summary of our budgeted expenditures by fund. And the next few slides that we'll go through is a breakdown of the enterprise funds and the other funds that the city operates. Our all funds budget for FY 25 is slightly over 1 billion. It's a slight increase over FY 24's budget. And remember, part of the reason why the budget shows as being so large is because of Public Facilities Authority Fund and the way that we have to count and account for the entire cost of this campus and the entire cost of police headquarters until we satisfy the debt.
Somebody's gonna have to explain to our local reporters that we do not have a $1 billion budget. And the way most people think about their budget. So I hope if there are any reporters listening, that they will actually ask you and Tony and to clarify that the city of Taylor Springs is not in fact adopting a $1 billion budget. Because I do see that, it seems like I see that story every day.
Well, technically, you're seeing all the funds that are,
Yes.
those are budgeted funds.
Yeah, but we're not a $1 billion.
But the
annual
general
operation.
fund budget is what we are operating off
Yeah,
of.
we're not a $1 billion annual operation.
No,
But those are on capital last.
yeah, but that's, I mean, those are all budgets, so it's not accurate to say it's, we have $1 billion budget, but a lot of that stuff is carryovers. It's funds that have been obligated in previous years. It is not, most of that money is not available for expenditure by this body. You've already expended.
We don't have $1 billion annual.
Our operating budget is much smaller, about 15% smaller.
But don't forget, you have to add in all of the capital funds because those are.
85% smaller.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, next is the confiscated assets fund, also known as asset forfeiture. That is on page 31 in your budget book. As we present these funds every year, we always give you the beginning fund balance from 2 prior years. We add in the revenues and subtract the expenditures and provide the ending fund balance. The FY 22 and FY 23 are audited actual numbers. FY 24 is a projection because we are still operating in FY 24. And then FY 25 is what is proposed for inclusion and adoption in the budget.
Can this confiscated assets fund budget be used for the police training facility?
Yes, part of it could be.
Part of it could be.
Are there restrictions on what you can use?
There are very stringent restrictions on it. There is a pamphlet, I guess you'd call it, that gets published about every 4 or 5 years. I think the last one came out a year ago for the use of asset forfeiture funds. But we have historically utilized these funds to support the police department and their operation.
Yes, thanks. Well, a lot of money. Have sitting in the banks.
Yep.
You said a lot, it's not that long.
Next is the E911 fund budget, which is found on page 33 in your budget book.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
This one, we've got a $1.2 million fund balance we anticipate at the end of 2025.
Mhm.
Any plans on what to do with some of that? So
Yes.
taking this up?
We are working on that. Some of that will be to support. In fact, you have an item tonight on your agenda that will be for the build out of the real-time crime center at the new police headquarters, which we will utilize some of those funds there.
Can we use part of that for the scope study? The training facility?
Probably,
Training facility.
Well, it's a shooting range, but it's also a training facility.
Training facility implies a much broader use of what's in the button.
Oh, we're talking about $40 million. I assume it's gonna be more than just a couple of shooting lanes.
let me research that. I believe we can, but let me research and bring that back to you if that's an option. Okay, B911 fund is exactly what it sounds like. It's the funds that are utilized to, ours is transferred over to Chatcom for the operation of our PSAP, our public safety answering phone, our 911 center. Tree fund budget, which is on page 34 in your budget book. Next is the impact fee fund budget, which is on page 35 in your budget detail. The next slide, which I know everyone is going to be very interested in, the reason why we are showing small expenditures is because these projects have already been encumbered in our budget and they are spoken for within our impact fee fund.
So, the things like that,
Yes, ma'am.
showing you like the lowest ever.
Mhm.
Are there any concerns with that dollar amount?
We have actually adjusted our expenditures in this to try to keep that fund as high as possible. I would offer that I believe we're being responsible with that by making those adjustments this year to maintain a fund balance in that fund. If you'd like for it to be higher, we can look at some adjustments out of the tree fund.
I just was just a comment that it's, it's been increasing. I don't know if it's 20,000 or if it's. Discussion with it was very high and now it's not. The other thing is
Well, people have learned not to cut trees, which is the whole purpose of the tree fund, is to avoid cutting trees. So it's actually working its purpose. So when you are successful in your policy objectives, your revenue is going to go in the same direction.
Next is the Community Development Block Grant Fund, which the detail is on page 38 in your budget book. Then we have Hotel Motel Tax Fund, which is page 39 in your budget book.
And I guess we have the new hotel as well.
The AWOC.
Yeah, but it's really more, it's not, we're getting more leisure travel piece of that, not so much the group travel, which we used to compete in their favor. So there's some adjustments that I'm working with the hospitality board to even the dips in this, the leisure travel is going extremely well, getting a lot of money from their targeting. But rates have not recovered from where they were pre-pandemic, but they're getting close. But what you're seeing is more people travel and business travel. What's not coming back are like the unions and.
What was the high water? Do you know the high water mark?
Not, yeah, it was,
The high number for the.
Like the 2019.
Probably two
And I
thousand.
saw, I think, the last thing, I think, was just completed.
there's been some limitations.
Don't hold up the thing, but I'd be interested in the high water mark because we really need that. That's been a critical source of revenue. If you want to.
Well, it covers the bonds on this, like, there's the general fund, and the hospitality board is marketing.
Yeah.
And also for the Performing Arts Center. Projecting for 25, we always budget less than what we received in the prior year. Just in case there are fluctuations.
And while it has come back to travel, there's still some softness in the market, and on it continue to grow like we've seen.
Look, we plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah. All right, next is excise tax on rental motor vehicles fund. That's page 40 in your budget book. That's a tax that the city receives on rental cars. Yes, sir.
One thing that's going to affect negative is we have big meetings in downtown, Congress Center, or wherever. You get what's called compression. They don't have enough rooms in downtown Atlanta, and so they end up out here. The opening of the new hotels in Atlanta has significantly increased the number of rooms they have. So we're anticipating less compression, fewer meetings, big meetings. Will be using our hotels as ancillary space.
One of us,
Yeah, that big, huge one there by Mercedes. You got some more coming. So we're anticipating that terms compression that pushes people out in the suburban areas as a result of the increased number of hotel rooms within the city of Atlanta. There will be less compression for these big meetings. We're hoping that the World Cup will help us a little bit. Yeah.
Marcus now collected, it was in 2019, it was having on 16.
5 minutes to 31. So your 2024 projected. I think it's close to back to where we were. It's still down, but it's inflation.
Okay. Again, back to excise tax on vehicles. This is a nominal number within the city budget this year. We are slightly increasing that. Peace Plus One includes the $6 million that is shown as revenue here is the PCID contribution towards TS 191 and TS 192. That is not additional money coming in from Peace Plus One collections. That is because those projects are budgeted within the Peace Plus One.
So they don't get their investment.
Who?
The T-Splosh. But the fund for the T-Splosh, if you're only projecting $8,000 in revenue for 24, that tells me that you're not allocating investment income that could be earned from those funds to that fund. Is that correct? So the general fund gets to keep the earnings from the interest. Okay, that's normal. Is that how it's legislated? Not an insignificant amount.
All right. Next is the T-Splosh One detail, which is on page 41 within your budget book. Here you will see the amount that has been received, expended, or encumbered to date for each of the projects. How much has been appropriated, future activity, what we are proposing for FY25, the current approved budget, and any changes to that.
We'll have to run through all of it
No, we're budgeting for that, but I don't believe we will have spent everything by that point. No, sir. Correct. Peace Plus Two is next, which is on page 42 in your budget book. The FY25 revenues are projected at 23 million, and that is based off of the collections that we are projecting for FY24. We are budgeting for total expenditures, but we do not believe we will expend everything during fiscal year 25. Here is the detail, which is in your budget book on pages 42 and 43. Next is the Capital Projects Fund. The detail begins on page 44 in your budget book. The 23 million that is listed for revenue in FY25 is the contribution that is coming from the general fund. Expenditures are scheduled to be 74 million, but because this is a multi-year fund, These will carry over for anything that is not expended. The next slide is the budget detail, which goes along with page 44 of your budget book. Our capital contingency line, as you all know, is to fill gaps that come up within projects. The way that we fund capital contingency is leftover dollars from a project. It rolls into capital contingency. The outdoor art program is included. Veterans Park artwork is ongoing, and this is contributions from outside funding, as you'll see listed on the schedule there. Down below, we have departmental projects, citywide design guidelines. That is a continuation. We're about to put that RFP out on the street. Zoning code review, perimeter small area plan, turnout gear, fire equipment replacement. The alerting system is to finish that out for WestNet, network hardware replacement. You'll also see a few things that are continuation projects on this next page: parcel corrections, SWAT truck, K9 replacements, and police ammunition. City center projects, you'll see there is the $3 million contribution for, we were supposed to change that title. It's not land acquisition anymore. That is City Spring Phase 2 infrastructure and demolition. Transmission relocation still has a prior balance for prior years. And then we get into our list of facility projects, many of which are continuing and ongoing. Page 46 in your budget book includes a list of all of the park projects that are currently funded or proposed for funding in FY25. Page 47 includes our transportation projects, again, that are continuing or they are recommended for additional funding this year. Also, other capital programs, including our pavement management, beautification, sidewalk, the additional appropriations to these accounts this year. Now, the one that I know you all always like to look at, because I do as well, page 49 in your budget book. I did not screenshot this one because it would be very difficult to see on the screen with the level of detail here. Again, we like to present our 5-year capital improvement plan that gives you some estimates for out-year capital projects that you can expect us to come forward and talk about more in upcoming sessions. It is important to note that the amounts listed in FY26, 27, 28, and 29 are estimates. They will change by the time we get to those budget years for additional discussion. But the amounts listed in FY25 line up to what we have just looked at on our prior slides.
My annual comment is that this is a staff generated advisory document. It is not part of our adopted budget. Is that right?
No, what is your adopted? It is included in the adopted budget, but you are not adopting the appropriations for 26 through 29.
So when you say it's included in the budget, what do you?
It's published in the budget book that you adopt. Correct. There's no appropriation beyond.
Right, these funds in the out years are not occupied.
Right, and I want. I mean, the fact that sugar point is illegal, but we have not done any of the body deep dive into these items. We don't give the same level of scrutiny such as it is to these items and prioritizations. This is a information piece. It's a guidance piece.
It's planning.
Right.
This is what staff says we'll be needing in the out years. It's up to this body to decide.
That's right, but when we adopt the transportation master plan or the parks master plan, or you name the master plan or the plan, it's a process that's gone through a lot of work that includes this body. And I just, at least for myself, there's not a lot of scrutiny given to this or conversation around this thing. And I think when this topic has come up in past years, I think you have made clear that you don't obligate ourselves. I just want to note that.
Well, we can't. Help it.
No,
Right.
so this is more saying, here's what staff said, thinks these are gonna be the needs of the applicant.
It's very, very helpful. Be actually nice to see because this is not our first rodeo. We've done this several times. That's right. So it'd be very interesting to do some look backs and see how accurate you all have been.
Plus, we don't have $300 million.
It would be interesting to see how accurate you all have been in the predictive mode of all of this. And maybe one day AI will help you in your planning of these things, analyzing our data, our expenditures and what we have.
So this is not an abstract conversation. We have talked throughout the year about the fact that we need some millions of dollars for the city springs too. I mean, $10 million for the fire station. And so this is really, these are the recognition that there's big dollars in the future.
Right.
Look at the one on fire station, full, three-story office building, check number, et cetera, et cetera. We're spent 11,2026. Well, that's what you put.
Yes.
That's not gonna happen. That's one of the things that's coming. So, then we start talking about money and resources. These are big items that come.
And it's very helpful when we had, it was a small government to turn $800,000 coming. I mean, this helps guide those conversations. Just because you have a spare just because you have a spare 800,000 lying around, there's a lot of things that are deferred.
Next is our fleet fund, page 52 in your line item detail. That includes the 1.7 transfer from the general fund going into this fund for revenues, which will then be expended on the vehicles that we discussed earlier. Public Facilities Authority Fund, which is on page 53 in your line item detail, includes the addition of the amount needed for principal and debt service that's listed on the revenues, as well as the expenditures and then a ending fund balance of 7.5 million. Performing Arts Center Fund, page 54 in your budget book, includes revenues of 7.8 million. There is no transfer from the general fund plan to go to the Performing Arts Center this year. There is a transfer from the hotel motel hospitality fund.
How much?
That is. Okay, you have that. Oh, there it is. It's $2,063,250. It's line 55590 on page 54 up at the top.
That transfer is used to
Pay for operations
for operation.
within the Performing Arts Center.
That's the one which Wendell had asked. No, operation.
Yes, legislation that allowed us to do that in some of those funds.
All right, so dollars being fungible, that's great news. So when we say there is no subsidy, we're saying there's no subsidy from the general fund. But if you, on a straight P and L, I think now we raise this, on a straight P and L basis, at a very high level, that this section of the budget requires an infusion of 2 million to zero out, and that money is coming from the hotel motel.
When, Rusty, didn't this come from a separate part of the hotel motel tax that was supposed to go to the county or the state? He's got it,
Right.
he got it over to us, but so it's not coming from our normal part of the hotel.
That was redirected from the state to the local government.
Right.
Right. So it's in addition to additional fund.
That's right. And
It's additional funds.
but but that doesn't mean the Performing Arts Center line of the budget can't continue to improve its performance economically. And that money, that's not a fixed amount coming from the hotel motel tax dollars being fungible. that we want to continue to improve that financial performance, and that subsidy from that hotel motel tax can come down and arguably be used for other purposes, or we can, by allowing that subsidy, we could do more things. We could also do more things.
We can do more things within this.
That's right. I just want to be clear that,
Legal programming and things like that.
that's right. I just want to be clear that the subsidy is coming from the hotel motel tax.
Correct.
That,
But
that,
but it's not coming from our share.
No, there is another portion that comes to the city.
Right.
Yes.
that's right.
So it's important to think about the hotel motel as tourism dollars. And the Performing Arts Center is a huge driver of tourism within the city of Sandy Springs.
Right, but let's be clear, the Performing Arts Center has not reached a break even. What it's
Not
reached
yet.
is, that's right, and maybe it won't ever. But what it's reached is a place where with available dollars, including the hotel motel, it's performing, it's meeting its obligations, and that subsidy is significant. And as that part of the operation, city's operation, continues to improve and maybe yield even better financial results, it's one of two things. You can either reduce the subsidy or you can just do more programs.
Correct.
That's right, you can do more.
All right, next. Thank you. Next is the stormwater fund budget, which is page 57 in the budget book. Here we are showing revenues of 4.25 million and expenditures of 4.34, which includes prior year encumbrances. Next is Development Authority Fund budget, which is page 58 in your budget book. This includes revenues projected of 386,000 and an ending fund balance of 173,891. One of my favorite slides every year is our projected undesignated general fund balance. So to get to this amount every year, at the top, we start with our general fund balance per our annual comprehensive financial report. At the end of fiscal year 23, that amount was 60,099,238. We add to that our FY 24 projected revenues of 137,146, less our projected expenditures in FY 24 of 134 million. That gives us 62,354,428. From that number, we restrict and subtract 25% of our general fund expenditures for FY 25, which is 31,187,505, gives us an available fund balance of 31,166,923. We have budgeted use of fund balance in FY 25 of 28,518,523, plus the items that were on the capital ballot of 1,848,400, which leaves us with $800,000 of undesignated general fund balance. After the last budget workshop, you all submitted and sent me some ideas for use of those available funds, which I have summarized here. Today, if you'd like to give us some additional direction on how you'd like to see these funds used, we can bring that back to the first public hearing on June 4th to include that in the budget, or we can continue forward with the presentation.
What is the first one?
That's the City Springs District.
That's the new, that for the development.
We had the $3 million in there. So one of you had suggested that adding the 800,000 to that would be appropriate as well. Fire Station 4, we've already talked about. There was conversation about adding it to our fund balance reserve, which would be increasing the 31,187,000 by 800,000. Creating, and we have a planned creation of Park Infrastructure Investments Fund in the 5-year CIP for FY 26 and forward. We don't have that for FY 25. And then we also had a suggestion of a redevelopment fund. These are in alphabetical order.
So I raised my
Okay.
I didn't know what the protocol was. But now,
You're still supposed to recognize me. Appreciate it. You're already.
so, I originally had submitted and circulated an idea about a community, I'm sorry, commercial facade improvement grant. Waddled after the downtown, the Decatur Downtown Development Authority. They actually have 3 programs, one, provides facade improvement, the other grant, and they're all like $100,000 or less. They've done them in 2022, the same, they're better than, let's say, what I can find in Marietta and Alpharetta and some other city, but they also have one for, interior renovation and as well as marketing and digital support on the phone businesses. So I know that a lot of our meetings, we have talked about the aged commercial properties that we have. Is there a way that we can help kickstart that and maybe get some small changes, think about cleaning the house or cleaning the interior? Often those kind of bring some things to light. So something that would be low cost, low dollar, low cost, low risk, potentially high reward. But we would, of course, have to set up a program. And after discussion with the council members, and I also reached out to Collins, who chairs our development authority. The general idea that I gathered from people was it seemed like that this would be more of an idea, not a budget item for this year, on the list. But would be better suited potentially for the development authority to undertake. And then run that. The city manager has had experience with other cities, putting these programs in place. And then, we do have a design standard program, project that's going to be kicking off. So it's kind of like we could choose to do something small and get started for that, try to figure out if that needs work. I know there was concerns voiced about, the opportunities clause, but other cities have done it, so somehow there must be a way to do it because they have and they comply. And I know there's concerns about, we have a lot of commercial properties that may be owned by larger companies who have deep pockets, and why aren't they doing renovations? So it could be that maybe if we go and do this, a little bit of legwork, it may turn out that perhaps an interior renovation grant or a marketing digital that would help the small businesses versus the facade. But I think it's worth a discussion about maybe not a budget item here, but to have staff work on what that could look like. And I think it was mostly positive. There were some concerns, so I'll just open it up. And I think that what I'm looking for is there consensus to have staff take a look at this and is this viable? And if this facade program is taking another type of program, would be available to help small business. Obviously, I am for this since I think that.
You and I talked about this, thing.
Last week, I think you're on vacation.
Well, it's like people can talk on the phone.
No.
So this is interesting, but the challenge to me is the owners of the property and the work that they taxpayer money into some property, some value, some REIT owns its work. It's not going to. But other cities have figured out a way to navigate this, and maybe it is for local businesses, maybe they help a local business. So I'm interested to hear what others have done. Let's see what they've done. Let's see what the results have been. We're recruiting new economic development director. So they would hopefully come on with this. Secondly, Mr. Lee needs to make sure that whatever we pass is legal, what's been the problem. So we've got a team that could begin to work for this and council. This is really like some future plans. Yeah. I do like the idea of I think what we do agree on for sure is that I use the word it's sort of big, but that dilapidated or obsolete or tired, outdated, whatever word you want to use. We want to see some refreshment.
Right, and in fact, everybody loved what was done, but credit to Riverwood Properties that did. We haven't seen a lot of improvement. They invested a lot in Springs Landing across the street from here. For that, I think we ought to be appreciative that somebody actually did that. Full disclosure, I know them very, very well, but, so yes, so I think our next development authority, we've got to do economic development person coming up. And then we've got the next development authority meeting coming up in July. Certainly engage those folks. So I think for purposes of our budget, I'm not sure that we're going to get signed today, but
More of the consensus for staff to do the research, so Dan started, and you can talk about
Yeah.
the development authorities.
signing up for anything that will improve, that will start laying the groundwork for improving the condition of properties in Sandy Springs, including, you know, yes, I'm-
What's the others of them? And just maybe the student idea from the office.
Brilliant, Laura.
Is there any objection? Brilliant.
I mean, I'm not interested in that, but because I'm more interested in us putting into place, standards for, existing properties and what James has got to do. So I'd rather wait and see what happens with that until, before we, start, this other program, because I feel like, and I'm one that said that most of the properties, if not all of the properties, most of the small businesses in Sandy Springs are in shopping centers that are owned by, like this, across the street corporation, the three businesses that I'm not interested in, giving, money, taxpayer enough dollars to real estate companies and owners that have deep pockets. I feel like they can spend their own money. And if we start developing city center where we'll have to do that soon, I think competition is going to force them to put more money into their investments if they want to keep their current companies and leases instead of having them have to.
yeah, I understand it with a very large subsidy to the city center place too.
Mr. Mayor, everybody here knows how cheap I am. I used to say the two cheapest people in Sandy Springs were Timmy and Giulio and Columbus. Last week, 5 of the Federal Reserve governors came out concerned about inflation and assuring people that interest rates are not going down soon, possibly towards the end of the year. Today, another Federal Reserve member came out today saying the same thing, that inflation is obviously heating back up again. Interest rates are probably not going down. I think it would be physically irresponsible for us if we're going to have $800,000. We know our revenues are going down. We've talked about that before, and we've projected that into our budget. I think the prudent thing for us.
I need to get you to hold off on this just 1 second, because Mr. Mueller has a topic on the table. We're gonna get.
I thought we were talking about all these topics. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, we'll get to the
Okay.
disposition of 800,000 shortly.
Okay.
Mr. Mueller was seeking consensus on a specific item for staff to work to review. So we need to dispose of that. And leave it.
I stand corrected.
For the facility, and then if the pivot, if we don't do the research, maybe we can do something for the interior, which I think tenants generally have to pay for versus the building improvements. But I did speak with, I don't want to talk to Kelly, she's allowed to participate, but in the morning, again, she go on to be, well, we can correspond to them.
So, we have one objection to going forward with staff. Is there any others? It sounds like consensus to me to at least begin spade work to begin with this project. All right, now, Mr. DeChilio, we can move on to these other items.
Well, as I said, the other items were that I think it would be very prudent for us to go ahead and maintain these extra reserves we have, this extra funding we have here, because we don't know what's going on. Every contract we get seems to be higher than the last contract. Every expense we get, every contract, I mean, it just, everything is going up. Inflation is not going down. As much as people in Washington want to tell you that, it's not going down. And I think it would be really imprudent for us to go ahead and spend this money. Remember, it's other people's money, it's taxpayers' money. We need to preserve it for their benefit And I think we should just add this $800,000 to the reserve for now. Come mid-year, when we do our mid-year financial review, if it turns out that I'm wrong, and I hope I am. If it turns out that we have surpluses and we have better collections than we anticipate and interest rates come down more than I anticipate them to come down, then we can go ahead and look for other alternatives on there. But I think right now it would be inappropriate for us to go ahead and plan on spending this money.
Anybody else? Yes, Mr.
I want to talk about the redevelopment fund because one of our adopted priorities is economic development with a focus on redevelopment. And as far as I can know or remember, we don't have anything set aside for redevelopment. And when you were talking about interest rates maybe going up or staying the same, there's going to be, and had out in the report, there might be some properties. I know this is a small amount, 800,000, but it's a start for us to start to look for properties that may become available that the city might want to purchase or add to that and eventually purchase bigger properties. But I think this is a good way to start this redevelopment.
Carmen, you got any opinion?
Well, I don't have.
Well, I'm asking everybody, we're looking for solutions. When you ran for office to make decisions, so.
I've got opinions there. I just, the question was when I didn't realize this was back in law school at Socratic.
Yeah.
And we're not voting tonight. No, since you called me, I'm probably in the camp of adding to the reserve fund balance, given the fact that we have, and that's what I said in my email to the group, that doesn't preclude any of these things. I mean, I think I like them all, honestly. I mean, I'm a proponent of investing more in parks. I'm a proponent of a fire station 4. I'm a proponent of the redevelopment of phase 2, and I like a redevelopment fund. But I think nothing is precluded by putting at this moment this thing you have it doesn't mean we need to dedicate it. So I'm whether for the same reasons or not, I'm at the same point as my colleague from District 5, that was just as for now, until into the reserve fund, we can do any one of these things. But I fully agree that all of these are priorities, including redevelopment, there could be properties that come up, but that money will be there. And to the redevelopment fund, but I would also have a consensus that we know more about the concept of a redevelopment fund, because that's maybe the cart before the horse, but we could establish a redevelopment fund without actually funding it just yet. And then you can look to examples from around the region. I'll give you one. Franklin Road in Marietta, 12 or 15 years ago, almost 20 years ago, was committed to upgrading that part of town, and was then prepared when the opportunities arose. And I had these conversations with a few city managers ago about opportunities that had presented themselves in 2008 and 9 with the collapse of the commercial real estate market. And I wasn't even anywhere near council at that point, but had the city had a plan and been prepared, there might have been opportunities during that period of time for the city very actively to be a land buyer, land banker, or partner with private entities to do things when the prices were right. So I can agree. I agree with all of these things, including the redevelopment fund, and would be joining in a consensus that as part of this economic development position, that they come back with information on what that might look like, so that we can be prepared.
So what you
Thank you, Professor. I said early on, I said reserve.
make sure. Paulson, you haven't spoken yet. Yeah, so my first thought was we set aside for the fire station 4, but in truth, we don't even know what fire station 4 is going to cost, what it's going to be. So the idea of holding it in reserve is, to me, important. So I said it's really the fund balance. And I'm not a big fan of just keeping money because of something coming. But we have so many things coming that we're not going to have a problem finding ways to spend it. Right now, that's why I do that. Back to Melissa's comment, by the way, I know nothing about this other than a few conversations. So my request to staff is to come back with other cities that have done this, just so I know, understand what they've done.
You can also structure it as a loan program. Based on what I'm hearing from y'all today, we'll come back with a work session discussion that will give you some options to consider. A loan program will avoid.
We still,
Yes.
we're switching back and
Yes,
forth.
we are.
I need to stay on one issue.
Yes.
Dr. Kelly, can you hear us and can you participate?
Hello. Yes, I can participate. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. So what was can someone remind me of the question or repeat it?
What is, we're looking for consensus on the usage of $800,000 that is available in undesignated fund balance.
Okay. And because I can't quite hear you. So I can, okay. So I am in support, or I don't have anything specific right now, if that's what.
So
We're
did I
asking, 'cause I
interpret what
couldn't
you're trying to say, that you would support putting it in the undesignated?
Reserve.
Reserve, okay.
Is that, if that's what okay, I'm sorry. It's kind of breaking up, but yeah,
No,
that's what I
I
thought.
understand. I just want to
Okay.
make sure that we were clear.
Yes.
So I was just gonna say, so I like the idea of fire safety board, but I think that's behind it. One of these, and I get maybe fund balance, what I would ask is that mid-year, we do have some sort of a readout on where we don't use this. My concern with whenever you hold things like this, there's some transparency, and while we're talking about it now, months from now, people will forget. And I know when I ran for office, we had at the time surplus, and with all this consternation about the surplus and what caused it and what we're using it for. And so I'm just saying, we just have to make sure that we put this in a reserve with balance like that, that we talk about it and we have it designated what are considerations, that's all.
Well, I think, and you're right, people don't always know what the reserves, the surplus is. We have a policy that we will keep up to 25% of the annual budget in a reserve fund in case we have a catastrophic emergency. Could be things like tornadoes or other natural disasters, or it could be a collapse of a water system or some other major expenditure that we would have to spend several $1 million in to make repairs and remediation and bring us back online to whatever the failure was. So that's been the policy of the city from the very beginning. And so when we talk about the surplus or the reserve, that's what that money's there for. It's an insurance policy against some catastrophic event that occurs, that the city needs millions of dollars that we would have available to spend. Like I've used this example on numerous occasions because it was the first one that I had everything from there. Talking to the mayor of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, with Scott, they lost all their police cars, they lost all their garbage trucks, they lost several buildings as a result of the tornado, and had multiple millions of dollars of recovery costs. It's to guard, it's an insurance policy to guard against that. It's not a surplus in the sense that these are monies that, we're just scrolling away for no particular reason. So you're right, we need to explain that from time to time, and I hope that clarifies.
So from an accounting standpoint, will this go into where is this 800? They go into the reserve, where does that
That
go?
would go into the reserve fund balance.
Fund
In
balance.
addition to the 25%, you would add $800,000 to the 187, so that number becomes 31,900.
31
million.
I'd pass out if it was 30.
I lost my decimal.
And it go about 25%?
Yes, we have routinely,
The reserve is a minimum of 25%. We have gone up to it in the past, we've had 30%.
we've actually been close to 50
Yeah.
in certain
But
instances.
so, I mean, this is more of a generally recommended number. Public accountants would tell you, you need to keep it about 25% of your annual operating costs in a reserve fund for those kinds of hope we never have to dig into it.
But we don't have a requirement with our bond rating to keep a certain amount of either.
It helps our bond rating.
And
Yeah.
to maintain our AAA bond rating, we've got to have the reserves.
So that number has fluctuated through the years, but 25% is the norm in most well-managed cities. So that's why it's there. Not number, it's not. For no good reason.
Okay,
I also, I'm sorry, I think I missed this part. How close were we to a consensus around the redevelopment fund? I'm sorry.
There was only one person in favor of actually using this $800,000 for that purpose.
Okay. Well, that was also something I like, even though I know that doesn't create a consensus, but I just wanted to say that. Sorry, guys. Continue.
Seems to me the consensus is, we won't take a formal vote until the 18th. The consensus is to put $800,000 into the reserve.
The formal vote.
That would be part of the budget document, yes. None of this can be done without a formal vote, and that will be done on the 18th.
Well, similar to, maybe recognized. Similar to the really good suggestion about how we upgrade existing properties. I am in favor of, particularly when the economic development person comes on board, to look at the programs alongside them. This is far more significant a redevelopment project that would have a plan, a mission, purpose, and then look at how we can fund that. So I'm very, very interested in that kind of staff work happening, not just sort of in the ethosphere, just actually a plan. And I would be part of the consensus to ask for some staff work to Jody's suggestion for some staff work on how a development fund has been used by other jurisdictions and how we might be able to use such a thing. And then look at funding.
That would be a good task for the new development director.
Well, again, similar to what Councilwoman Millar asked, I want to do more than just sort of nebulous. If that's what Jody you want to do, I would be in favor of that idea. I think we talked about
Right now, we're on $800,000.
Yes.
So we can talk about other things.
Well, we can get to the end of the meeting and have an open discussion. Right. Sure.
Right now, I'm trying to keep everything to me.
Oh,
All right, so.
Now-
Gotcha. All right.
okay. Next slide is one that we always update each year as part of our budget process and our budget presentation. Since the city was incorporated in fiscal year 2006, when we add in 2024, because 25 is still a proposal and it is not actually approved and authorized, the city has invested $372 million back into capital projects and infrastructure in the city limits of Sandy Springs. Yes, ma'am.
Add T-Splosh.
It's even more.
So.
That's right.
Actually, we had a new update of this, then that line.
Mhm. We'll go back and add that for the next one.
That's a big number.
That doesn't include this building
No, it does
or
not.
the police station. That's where you get up to your $1 billion
That's exactly right.
investment.
The purpose in showing this is, and I think Mayor Galambos would be very proud to see
It's
this number.
cash.
Yeah, this
This
is
is
actual
cash.
cash invested back in Sandy Springs. Sidewalks, road resurfacing, all of the quality of life things that make a huge difference for
This
this
was the commitment that was made to use the
special services district.
special service district money and reinvest it back in this.
Yeah.
So this is the complete, or not completion, but the kept promise of doing this exactly what was said in 2005 and beyond.
And next year, as we turn 20 years old, we're gonna have to split it. Actually have two slides that show these numbers, so. Following slides are in response to questions that were either posed during budget workshop 2 or were received after. I know this is a very complicated and very confusing slide to look at, but we received a question for analysis of sales tax. The way that sales tax is calculated within Georgia and what we can pull from the Department of Revenues, it's based on countywide tax collections. And it's sorted by how much was collected by month in 21, 22, 23, and 24. You'll see there are some fluctuations that are occurring. You will also notice that we do see a slight downtick some months. For example, February 24 was below February of 23 and 22, but higher than February of 21. We still believe that we are on track with the number that we are including as our projected revenues for FY 25. As you all recall, as part of our local option sales tax negotiations 2 years ago, our percentage is actually decreasing this year as the cities, all of the cities is decreasing as Fulton County's number increases as part of that negotiation.
What is our percentage lead?
It's going to be, I believe, 9.38%, but I'll get you the number, and that's 9.38% of the total countywide collections.
And decreasing every year, so for the next 6 weeks.
How far down is it go?
I think it's 8.5. Yeah, I'll get you the exact.
So this doesn't follow the state reduction.
No.
Or actually being better. It's than the state.
Remember, because the state is not really focused on sales tax, that state number is income taxes.
Well, but I think the state report also referred to sales tax, but I think the point of the request, and I think John, the point is exactly what I was thinking, is that we are not yet at a 5 alarm fire on revenues, but I think there's ample reason still to be cautious, as we always are. And we'll have to, as I asked when I asked for the slide, we'll watch the trends. And I think
We always
but the point is, you've already budgeted
Less.
and you're taking that into account. And I think we just have to watch the numbers.
Well, I'm part of the GMA task force that looking at the overall tax regimen in the state of Georgia. And they do have some numbers at the meeting last week that were a little surprising. We are not the second largest producer of sales tax in Fulton County. In fact, we are the fourth largest producer of sales tax, which was shocking to me. And I haven't gotten to the bottom of why Alpharetta and Roswell, particularly Roswell, who has, it seems to have smaller retail to do just on the surface, are generating so much more sales taxes than Sandy Spring. So I'm not sure, but they came from not the Georgia Department of Revenue, because they don't track what happens at the local level. They don't do census numbers. It's how they figure it. So I'm not sure. That was concerning. To see that we're down the food chain when it comes to produce, at least according to the U.S. Bureau of Census, when it comes to generating sales tax. That's part of it. I think that is some of it.
Yeah.
And Alpharetta gets the benefit of milking whatever was there. And then, but we're not sure exactly what it was, but that was just the numbers that came from census.
Well, Mayor, all the more reason for the body and the city to focus on improving economic conditions and redevelopment.
Well, yeah, 95% of our retail space is leased.
Well, it's also quality.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you've got a Tesla and, the Onward Reserve at Avalon and Orvis and other things and versus, and there are consumers of nail salons in my house, no doubt. It does impact what the numbers.
I understand. But I'm not sure those numbers are up to that. They were really sure. I tried to dig into.
Next question we had, yes, Tony, sorry.
Of the 50 sales tax is 9.4894
Fulton County,
for lost.
that's based on population, right?
No, that was the negotiation that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But it wasn't tied to how much economic activity. Wasn't real.
Well, it was in a way, but it was a number of factors that were mostly tied back to getting the agreement with Fulton
But it
County.
wasn't really correlated to what Russ, I mean, the cities didn't go look and say our percentage of.
Yeah, some of them wanted to, but they made certain assumptions that
They didn't plan out.
that at least the Bureau of Census doesn't think were accurate.
Okay. Next, we had a question about profit and loss report for the ice skating rink. The amount of one-time, first year expenses is broken down on the far right. That came out to about 31,904. Our overall loss factoring in cost of goods sold, staff time for the first year, excluding the first year expenses, was 134,000. Part of the way that we're going to approach it for the next year is that we are not going to be open as many days when we didn't have as many skaters coming. So for example, early in the week did not have a large number of skaters, but we still had to pay for the staff that was here. So we're going to better manage that. In addition, we will be looking for a sponsor, a signature sponsor for this, which should offset more of the losses and hopefully get us to a place that it is not losing money. But again, this is something that was extremely popular within the community last year.
And very recent, can't remember what I did.
$12, I think. Yeah.
The one time I went. I should have told him.
Getting to watch the ball. Are you using them?
Where did we store this stuff?
We pay contractor to store it.
Not the ice rink, the one-time stuff. So the other stuff, the fire pits and
Yeah, fire pits and rock pits. I mean, there's like all these like.
It's all.
Storage rooms somewhere.
it's stored at a bunch of different places. There's some storage rooms down in the parking garage and. All right, next we had a question about what were the strongest limiting factors for the Performing Arts Center. Candidly, our venue capacity and our scheduling conflicts is the number one limiter that we have. Parking is another, the amount of staffing that we have available to work, and then other resources that might be required through part-time help or other resources to manage. How do we measure success? And the next slide we're going to get to will show you a breakdown of the utilization rate, the booking rate, lead conversion, the average booking value, and the revenue. We're also looking at operational efficiency, customer satisfaction, and then market position and reputation is another way that we measure success. For event rentals, I'm pleased to report that our lead conversion rate is actually above industry average for this type of facility. Industry average is typically around 15 to 20%, so we're doing better than the industry on that. Our booking rate is a little bit higher. The average booking value and the revenue are still preliminary numbers. Because we've been reporting to you for PAC on calendar year, we've continued that here, which is why that year-to-date number is only reflective of the first 4 months of the year. On the Performing Arts Center, there was a question about the number of community events that were held. In 23, there were 60 events on City Green, which includes rentals, not just city-produced events. 2024, we're estimating 68 events that will be on City Green. And then the breakdown per our other venues. Offsite includes our Lantern Parade production at Children's Healthcare, as well as Spooky Springs at Abernathy, and then Morgan Falls for the full Lantern Parade.
Where are the fireworks?
Fireworks will be included in City Green. Utilization for our city-produced shows. In 23, we had 30 performances. In 24, year-to-date, we have had 10 city-produced shows. The available seats, the number of sold seats, and the percentage utilization is shown there. Partner shows include things like City Springs Theater, Roswell Dance Theater, Hershey Felder as George Gershwin, Michael Feinstein, and the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival. And that gives you the breakdown of the number of performances, the amount of available seats, how much was sold, and the percentage utilized.
When you say 2024 year to date, is that so what?
Through April. So it does not include the upcoming performances we've announced, but we haven't produced yet. Resident versus non-resident. We also received a question about the number of Sandy Springs residents that are buying tickets and coming to performances here. That breakdown is here for 2023 and the amount for 2024. We are reaching a broad audience.
Well, you recall when we did the market analysis for the theater, the market analysis didn't include just in the spring, it covered an area that included 250,000 potential customers. So we anticipated that we can think from outside, which is good, because that helps our restaurants and other shops in the area.
We've got good penetration.
That means a lot of market outside the problem.
And everybody is speaking loves it.
Yeah. Yeah. They're having conversations. Several communities are looking at trying to replicate what we're doing here. It's gonna be a challenge. We've got a lot of things to do. That's, a lot of cities are doing replicating more what's going on out there on the green. They have Friday night concerts and come on, they're paying a lot of money to bring some big bands. What some of our other communities are doing out on when they have their Friday night concert. We had some last year, some good names, but they're getting some good names for some of these other venues around the beach.
Finally, we had a question about the number of outdoor sculptures we currently have. There are 28 that are in the city already. I plan to have a conversation with Art Sandy Springs about transitioning to look at other types aside from sculpture and how we could look towards building out our indoor art collection. Because to everyone's point, we have a lot throughout the city, but we don't want to saturate. And there are other opportunities that we could have to have placement within City Hall or our other city facilities. It's limited because of the number of public buildings that we have, and that would really be the only place that we could put them. But we could certainly work with property owners if there was an interest in.
Some areas like the parks.
We did one years ago.
What
happened to that?
I think it's still there.
Still there. It's still there.
We could look at some parks as an option.
Having a good partner helps.
All right. Any questions?
So I have a quick one.
Yes, sir.
Slide 59.
Yep.
So the far right hand side, the percent of the number of seats sold, 65, 68, 60. I'm equating this to capacity utilization, so that means not the negative percent.
Yeah.
What is your percent? Should this be 99%? Should it be possible to get 75% of the people that are in this world? Tell us more about this.
Well, we shoot for a 60% break even. So that's when we're purchasing shows, pricing tickets. We at least want to be break even at 60%. We always shoot for 80, 90%. And as we're seeing with some of the upgraded talent we're bringing in, we are at that number, the percent number is much higher. If you look at, it's like Perlman was almost sold out. So, as we also look at some of the smaller shows that we've had in the past, or some of the rentals that come in, the percentage can get dragged down because of that. But I'm always looking to try and reach 80%.
So you target 60% break even, we're hoping to get up into the.
And that's for ticket sales. So it doesn't include food and beverage and all that other revenue.
Good shop. We found a shop.
We're working.
What was the question?
Have they found another shop yet? We're doing interviews.
Did you put out the article for the morning?
Where are we on that, Kristen? Is it ready to go?
Yes, I think it's
It's
either
supposed to
out
go
or it is going out.
Friday? It was either Friday or Monday.
Let me confirm.
And going back to the redevelopment fund, really just referring to household shop. You have thoughts on what you mean. How do you feel about advancing this? What is your vision for advancing this, even if it's not immediately defined, what would you propose?
You want staff to, what do you want?
The Williams Paint Home House RFP is published.
Is what?
Is published. So it-
You're gonna
it's-
send that to us, so.
Yes, I will
So we
send,
can
it was
forward it
just,
back.
it was just published. I'll send it to you all.
Don't get staff to spend some time.
And what, I'm deferring to you, you were the
I know.
one that came up with the redevelopment fund, what is your vision for a redevelopment?
If
fund?
that's, if it takes staff's time to figure out if we need to do one, or if we need to have one.
Well, you asked for 800,000 for a redevelopment fund, I'm asking you, let's assume, what would that be then?
I mean, I'm gonna go back to, like, I guess my little. That's one of our priorities, is to have, redevelopment property, so we haven't done anything with that, so we've done everything, we voted it as one of our priorities, so I
So,
think that is something that we should start to figure out how we can make that happen, yes. Whether, I don't know how to, what staff would do to decide whether we need one or should have one, but if we did adopt it as one of our.
where would we put it, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but where would we put 800, where were we gonna put the money? I'm trying to agree with you
I know.
as to the concept of redevelopment is really important. And how should we pursue that, whether it's with consultant or with economic development? I'm just asking you because I want to lend support to the idea of a redevelopment fund and see if it's.
Well, let's give Mr. Michelle an opportunity to think about it and bring some ideas to the table,
Right.
rather than put her on the spot before the week. Found it.
Thank you.
All
I mean,
right.
my idea is that there's gonna be some properties that are gonna come available. There was something, I was kind of nervous of it yesterday because there was something that I thought was sold to someone else here in Sandy Springs, which wouldn't have done well for our city. So I want to be able to have a fund available if something comes up and it would be good for.
Well,
But
good
thank you.
suggestion.
I would like to think about it.
And I can help.
We need, because I'm not, so, 2 minutes. When we built this facility, we invested in the certain entire property, then the apartments got sold, and that got us some money. It was never formally a development fund. What I always thought of that was across the street, and what I was told that is we can open the fund, we started with, and now we're doing it across the street, so. Is that the same kind of?
Now, these are properties that make them up, for instance, if there's a foreclosure on a piece of property.
And it's a money set aside for
Right.
something pops.
Exactly, that we want to get before someone else gets, because we might not like the others.
Let's give her an opportunity to think this through. They're picking her with questions. we probably-
I don't have to like similar. So I had discussed with city manager prior about, do we have guidelines on when we would buy property and why would we buy property? And I know everything has been opportunistic. It sounded like over the years we made some planning as in the phases. But I think that would fit well into a redevelopment fund of what is the end goal and then how order to put this in.
That's the key point, not just buying property. You
That's
gotta have a
correct.
plan to what
Yes.
you do.
That's right, like, are we gonna build baseball field with soccer?
We might have an opportunity to continue this discussion going forward, but we're getting up against the clock. We got another meeting, staff's got to get ready.
Okay, one more comment. If y'all have any specific things you'd like to address prior to the next budget meeting on June 4th, please email them to Tony and I so we can include them in the materials for the next meeting.
Next, great job.
Thank you.
So much work.
And thank you for the cross-reference on the pages. I know Dr. Phillips, we're always trying to put through things.
Tony and Caroline and I were here late last night, making sure all of that lined up.
All the
So,
staff has done a great job. We have seen Tony, Steve, and Caroline. They put in an enormous amount of time into this. And they're great kudos. I mean, this is a process we've gone through for so years. The council really doesn't understand the amount of work that goes into it and everything else. And Rocky knows, others know. All the staff has been very involved in it, but they put some late nights in on this. Yes, we are. Mr. Mayor, I move adjournment. Adjournment. Awesome. All in favor, say aye. No. We are adjourned until 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.